After buying this dead, hurricane flood total Bentley Continental and tearing it completely apart, there's only one thing standing in our way from getting it running, and that's this module right here, known as the Kessie, which is its immobilizer. When we took it out of its compartment, we found that it was loaded with water, and while this is likely what turned the car to a brick and caused us a ton of issues thus far, there's one major positive here, and that's that it was rainwater inside the module's casing, and not the salt water that made its way into the car's cabin. Now, the last time we tried to resurrect one of these flood cars, we were unsuccessful. This Aston Martin DBS was flooded in a very similar fashion, with its main computer also waterlogged, but with salt water. This was so corrosive to its circuit board, when we tried to retrieve the data off of it, it was long gone, which basically left us with no reasonable option in saving the car. All modern car immobilizers, except for Kia's, use a unique security pin and set of codes to keep a car secure. In most cases, every part of the car's computer networks has to have matching numbers. Things like the keys, ignition unit, engine computers, and so on all have to be matched before a car will start. If one of these parts are missing or just mismatched, the car won't start. These special codes can also be helpful to program damaged modules or missing keys. So if the module that contains the main password to make your car work is dead beyond repair, it makes everything that much more difficult and expensive. If you were to take any of these flood cars to a dealer with this issue, they would likely require a replacement immobilizer, which will come with a new password, and so every other module that communicates with it will also have to be replaced. In the case of my Aston Martin, the dealer quoted $40,000 for this job. Now, I spent $9,000 on this Bentley, and I'll be darned if I have to spend another $900 to fix it. So I tried rubbing alcohol on a toothbrush to get this circuit board up and running, and it didn't work very well. It's at this point where I have to wonder why I keep gambling on electrically complex total cars. On top of them having some sort of catastrophic damage, they come with typical European car issues. But not all gambles should be like this, and that's why I've been playing Slots Cash. It's a super fun mobile game where you can win real money without the risk that comes with buying broken Bentleys. Slots Cash brings all the thrill of real slot machines right to your phone or tablet. With dozens of games, jackpots, and daily bonuses, every spin feels like a chance to hit it big, especially since you'll never have to deal with the saltwater flooded engine or a burned hole in your quarter panel. Slots Cash features super fun skill slot tournaments. Start by selecting from a variety of different games and let the spin begin. All right, let's see if I can come in first place here. Stop each reel on the spot and try to hit the jackpot. After each game, you'll be ranked. The higher you are, the more you win. So I came in third in this tournament here, and I won $5.60. And unlike my salvage car projects, Slots Cash actually pays off. You can cash out your winnings anytime with no gimmicks or hidden fees. This is real money straight to your account, even without making any deposits. You can see here I started with a free $5 bonus by using my promo code SAMCRAC1, and after just a few plays, I'm already up to $11. Slots Cash is free to download and play. All you have to do is hit that link in the description box. When you're in the game, make sure you use promo code SAMCRAC1 to get a $5 bonus, and they're going to give you free coins every single day to keep the fun going. So instead of betting on flood cars, why don't you give Slots Cash a spin? The link down in the description box. Good luck! So while a bad immobilizer can be a pretty complex problem, as long as the car is a few years old, there's usually an easy solution that doesn't require the dealer, and that's to get your immobilizer cloned. After a while, encryption on these computers is broken, and developers create software to read these unique passwords on these devices. Even if your circuit board gets wet, a lot of the time the microcontrollers that carry the unique passcodes can be tapped directly into and read, and that's exactly what my friend Fadi Koka did. Fadi specializes in European car electronics, and by soldering a few wires to specific pins on this board, he was able to extract the special codes. Then we bought a used module off of eBay for $300, and he flashed our original codes onto it. And now this computer is a one-to-one clone of the one that we removed from the car. Fadi is making a complete step-by-step video on how he cloned this Bentley module. It'll be over at his channel, and I'll link it down in the description box. All right, so here it is, the donor module. This is gonna go back behind this trim piece here. I gotta fish it in place, and then we're gonna see if this finally starts the Bentley. All right, everything is hooked up except for our batteries. We're gonna start with the small one over here. I just heard the car ding, which is really nice. Then we're gonna go to the big guy over here. And now I hear it continually dinging, which is also really good. All right, here we go. Foot on the brake. Well, the car's cranking. That's great news. But what in the heck would it not be starting for? Oh, come on. Are you serious? It cranked once and then it stopped? You know, I broke out my code reader and I started doing a scan. But what's the chance that this thing is completely out of gas? All right, I went and put a couple gallons of gas in. I checked all our connections and everything looks fine. But I think I figured out exactly what's going on, because every time I turn the key in the ignition, there's a big click coming out of that KESI module. And so what I think is happening is it's sending a signal to the ignition relay. And if you remember, our ignition relay was damaged by the flood. And so I just have it jumped currently. Because it's on permanently, there's a communication issue. I'm assuming KESI wants to see it flip on and off, like you putting the key in the ignition in and out. Instead, if it's on all the time, it might think you're tampering with it, and so it just shuts down the car from cranking. But if I pull the jumper out of where this relay goes and put it back in, we're simulating the relay turning on and off. And when we do this, check out what happens now. All right, here we go, foot on the brake. So it runs, and it runs surprisingly well. Now I want to see if it drives. I had it idling for a few minutes, and the air suspension never raised itself in the back. Now, that could be because it's sitting uneven on the blocks. So once I got that all sorted, I dropped it to the ground and started it again, but the back is still sagging. We'll figure out why in a minute, but with the front at least a little higher, let's put her in drive and see what happens. All right, the thing drives. It does have quite a few warning lights on the dash, specifically this one that is basically saying like park doesn't work. I think that's what that means. And all of the gear indicators are lit up, although I could put my foot on the brake. I can move it to drive. It doesn't want to let me shift it over into manual mode, although I can go down to sport. And then when I put my foot on the gas, it definitely moves. I know we got a bunch of problems going on here, and this can all be sorted by just putting everything back in the interior, right? But does our convertible top work? If we hit this button here, oh baby. Uh-oh, look at this. No way. Is it gonna work? It's trying, and it's definitely getting stuck on something. It's wanting to try. Oh, come on. You can hear it just wanting to do it, but it's not doing it. Oh, everything's going wrong. Okay, here we go. Let's shut it off. Look. It's still running. It's still running because look, when we pull that, there it goes. Okay. You know how many people would deal with stuff like this and like this if it meant that you got your Bentley for $9,000? With this thing running and driving, we could go one of two ways with it. First, we could just make the spread, which means we send it right back to the salvage auction, list it as a flood damage car, but now a running and driving flood damage car. There, I think we make probably right around $3,000 just sending it back with no additional legwork and no more money spent. Currently, I'm in this car. $9,000 is what I paid for it. We paid $300 for the KESI module and another $30 for a fuse box that we replaced in the floorboards. The second option would be to refurbish everything that's worn out and get it retail ready to sell, to an end user. There, I think you could fetch somewhere in the mid to low 20s. There was one on eBay with the same exact story, really low flood line, and they were asking, I think, 25 or 26,000 on it, and they were getting a lot of interest. So let's do a quick inspection on this car. We'll run through everything that needs to be fixed or replaced. We'll tally it up and see which avenue makes more sense. My first concern is going to be with the air suspension, because these things can be very expensive to replace, but sometimes they can be really cheap to replace. And when it comes to air suspensions, you always start out with a visual inspection. Even if there's a small pinhole in these systems, usually they'll air up, but you'll just hear the compressor running for a long time. The fact that the front is up but the rear is not tells me we need to look in the rear, and right off the bat I found the issue. We've got a broken ride height level sensor. These things are really simple. There's a floating arm that as you go down the road, it travels up and down, and it tells the air suspension computer how much air to send to that shock or to take away from that shock. Since ours is broken, it's collapsed all the way down, which brings the car all the way down to the ground. I had the same exact issue on a Bentayga, and from what I understand, these things break, especially when they're dragged up on flatbeds. When the tow drivers hook the chains around the control arms, a lot of the times they'll catch these. They're made out of plastic, they snap. But the good news is they're super simple to replace, and they're replaced on so many different Volkswagen and Audi vehicles. If you go online and search for a Bentley ride height level sensor for the rear of this Continental, you'll find them all day long between $80 and $100 used. But just go and change Bentley to VW Phaeton and the price changes really quick to around $20. So this is an easy fix, a non-event, and it hardly costs anything. Next up in the cabin, we've got 3 major relays that need replacement. The first one is our ignition relay. It's stamped 100, and Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, everyone used these things for the longest time. These are, again, all over the internet used. You can find them right around $10. But these 2 other specialty relays, the first one is marked Servotronic, and that's for our power steering systems. The second one is marked G-Lock interface, and that's for our stability control. Now, if you go to the dealer, I would bet both of these together would cost you over $1,000. And if you search the part numbers used, you can find each of these for a little bit over $100. But here's the trick on the servo motor one for our power steering. Just again, look up a Volkswagen Phaeton. You're going to find it. It's got a different part number. And I would imagine it would react almost identical to the Bentley Continental GT because the cars are so similar. You can find those ones between $10 and $20, again, used online. Now this other one, for our stability control, I've had a little bit harder of a time finding, but they're available and people have them used anywhere between $60 or $100. Let me know in the comments if there's a hack for this one like there is for the power steering one, and what other cars might use a similar relay, because if an Audi or Volkswagen use one of these, chances are it'll be pretty interchangeable. With all these relays changed, the car should start every single time, and it should get rid of the ABS and traction lights on the dash. So just a few relays and that ride level sensor will make this a decent driving car, but if we want to make it a nice Bentley, we should touch up a few things in the interior, starting with the infotainment screen, which has a big dot in the center. This is broken, and there's services that refurbish these for several hundred. You could probably buy a used one for $300 to $500, but they're old and they are terrible to navigate. Not to mention, they are notoriously unreliable. They break, they'll go into a boot loop. Now the good news is you can buy an aftermarket unit. It costs a little bit more at around $1,000, but it's much more modern and it will probably make using this car a much better experience. So I would opt to just get one of those. And the next thing, while this isn't mandatory, it would make this car so much better to just rip out all the interior seats and put in a used set. I went online and found seat sets for the GTC right around $2,000, and that's without even making an offer on them. The reason why I would opt to replace the seats instead of refurbishing the ones that are in there is, number one, the seat modules underneath the front seats. They did get a little bit of water in them, and I would almost bet you that those modules themselves are dead. If you went to buy those would be a few $100s a piece, and at that point, you might as well just get some new seats. So if we did all those upgrades, it would really hike the budget at around $3,000, but I think those are major improvements. It would make a huge difference, and it's probably worth it. As far as the paint and body on this car, it's actually really nice. Of course, it's very dirty, but if you were to clean this and polish it, I think it would look brand new. One of the things I really liked about this Bentley is that the front bumper is intact. And I know that sounds funny, but anytime these cars have an air suspension failure, like this car came with, and the whole entire car goes down on the ground, it seems like half the time they destroy the front bumpers. And you don't have to take my word for it. There's a bunch of auction listings out there for these Bentleys. They look perfect all around, but the front bumpers cracked halfway off the car just because someone either continued to drive it after the suspension dropped on the ground, or a flatbed driver pulled it up and ripped it off. How tough do you think this is going to look on the underside? First obvious thing here is all the corrosion around the steel parts. These aren't a big deal. This is just a cover that holds in place the undercovers for like the transmission there. There should be one here for under the engine, but it's already been taken off. And then like our sway bar is looking pretty haggard. But again, these are things that come off and can be replaced. On the other hand, look at the oil pan. It is mint. And you could see specifically like on the horns here, where the floodwaters got up to, it kind of made it to like the bottom of the horn, the lower horn, and they didn't go any higher. So again, all of these things point to a very low water line. You know, nothing was heavily compromised under here, but I'm amazed at how clean the engine is. Look at the drive belt. It looks new. It's in perfect shape. All the hoses are clean. There's not a single leak anywhere. This is very impressive for a 15-year-old Bentley that looks kind of rough on the outside and inside. I would have thought for sure that we would be seeing the typical Volkswagen, Audi, leaks everywhere. And it is really super clean. I think there's one last area in this Bentley that would need a significant amount of attention before it was either reused or resold. And that is obviously its convertible top, which has patches covering holes, and the patches are developing new holes. And I wasn't super surprised at this when I saw it at the auction, because this is actually a factory flaw from Bentley. The way they set it up, they put too much tension in this area, and in doing so, over a short period of time, these would just start to rip themselves apart from the inside out, and you'd have these big holes in them. Now, Bentley actually created a fix kit. Now, this kit cost over $500. I'm sure it costs well over that to get it installed. And what it does is it adds a handful more strings to make the tension area a bit bigger, so it's not just ripping holes in these corners right here. And just look at how big these holes can get. Now, just to get a canvas replacement here, an aftermarket one costs over $3,000. That includes the piece of rear glass. But again, that's an aftermarket canvas top. Sometimes they can be good, sometimes they can be terrible and loose fitting, but you really don't know until you get it on the car. But I would venture to guess that there's a gear or a motor issue back there in the thing that actuates these arms. Probably not the worst thing to replace, but all in, to get this top sorted, even if we did it ourselves, I don't see how it couldn't cost us any less than $4,000. The only way around this would be to make this car a permanent convertible. We could take this top right here, stick it down in its casing and never pull it out again, and that would probably really kill the chances of ever trying to retail this car. But we could have a Bentley convertible for somewhere in the neighborhood of, $10,000 to $13,000, depending on how far you go in the interior. Now, they have this special tool that comes with all the convertible Bentleys, and it's hidden behind this little compartment in the rear seats. And of course, I went to go get it to see if we could pull it down, and it is missing. I went online and looked up the tool, and the first link that popped up showed it for like $500. Of course, it's the same exact tool that comes out of an Audi A4 Cabriolet, so you could buy a used one, again, 60, 70 bucks. I think it makes for kind of a fun idea, as long as we have a garage to park it in. So let me know what you guys would do with this Bentley. Would you go make the spread? Would you do it up? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you have any good sources for convertible top repair or replacement, again, let me know down in the comments, because I know there's always ways around some of these high fees. But when it comes to convertible tops, things can get very pricey very quick. I've dealt with it on other exotic convertible cars, and it's why you're always better off buying a coupe, but it's also why you can get an amazing deal on an exotic drop top. If you're not already following me on Instagram, where I post pictures of new projects coming to the channel, you can find me here, or there's a link down in the description box. Guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching today, and I'll catch you very soon.